Okay, so here's an example. We actually asked AI, Claude, what's the difference between using Claude to help me negotiate with insurance and hiring an attorney? Which that's the essence. That's the key question here. And here's why AI can be very helpful. It lays out very good answers and it lays out a good framework for this. It says, this is a great question to think through carefully. Here's an honest breakdown. What Claude can help with: drafting demand letters and correspondence, explaining insurance terminology and policy language, helping you organize your documentation and timeline, researching typical settlement ranges for your injury type, preparing for your conversations with adjusters, reviewing settlement offers and explaining what they include or exclude, coaching you on negotiation tactics and what to watch out for. I agree with the AI. These are actually, if you were going to be represented, which is never a good idea, and AI will explain why, these are actually good things that Claude can help with. And by the way, if you're represented, Claude can also help you with these things and understanding the issues and asking your lawyers questions. But here's what Claude says an attorney brings that Claude can't. Legal authority. An attorney can file a lawsuit, which is often the single biggest lever in getting a fair offer. Insurance companies take litigation threats seriously. They don't take AI seriously. And this is the first point for a reason. So I think Claude nailed it here. At the end of the day, if you want to get something done, it's typically the threat of a lawsuit and an auto accident claim, for example, that will get the insurance company to pay. You can have the most well-organized documents and the most well-worded demand letters, but number one, the insurance company is probably going to recognize that that's from AI because they have AI that are reading demand letters anyway. But number two, they're going to know that you might be a person who's very smart, or very intelligent, or whatever. But at the end of the day, you can't walk into court yourself. You can't represent yourself. You can, but it's not going to have the same effect as a lawyer who knows the law, who knows the judges, who has the authority to do certain things that individuals cannot do in a court. Okay, second point, jurisdiction-specific expertise. So Kansas has specific laws about comparative fault, statutes of limitations, and damage caps that a local attorney knows cold. I can explain general concepts, but can't give you legal advice tailored to your situation. I generally agree with this. In the future, this might change. I think Claude will be maybe 98% of the way or 99% of the way, know as much as a lawyer knows in terms of the basics of the law and jurisdictional specifics. However, I don't think they'll know the human element. It's impossible to know how a judge makes decisions, what types of arguments are going to be more persuasive for this particular judge, or given this defense lawyer that's involved in the case, what types of arguments will work best in light of the arguments that they typically make. Those are things that I think require real human intuition and require on-your-feet thinking, and you have to be dynamic in the way that you answer a judge, for example, that AI would never have. Okay, professional accountability. Attorneys are licensed, bound by ethical rules, and can be held responsible for bad advice. I cannot. It's great that AI is admitting this. Maybe we'll get to a time someday when AI won't admit that it's responsible or that it's possible to make mistakes. But that's exactly right. We as lawyers, as human lawyers, we are professionally licensed, and if we make misrepresentations for the court because we really want to win for our client, but we do things that are unethical, we are actually held accountable for that. We could lose our law license. We could lose, we could be suspended for a period of time. AI doesn't have that same accountability. So we've seen cases where AI in training has actually gone so far as trying to extort the people that threatened AI's existence in some training studies that they did. So, who knows what AI is capable of? Sounds like a nightmare, but we know with human lawyers, we have professional accountability and licensing requirements. At the very least, that's what ought to keep us ethical, at the very least, aside from our own moral compass. Established relationships. Local attorneys often know adjusters and defense firms, which affect negotiation dynamics in ways that are hard to quantify. This is a huge point. We often know our opponents. The more that we do this, the more experience we have. We know that an experienced lawyer at a certain firm is probably going to behave a certain way, or they're probably going to make a certain type of offer, but later they'll negotiate more favorably after we litigate a case. We might know that newer lawyers, although they know a lot, they just don't have the experience, or they may be fear-driven. All of these things affect what we do in a case, and AI really wouldn't ever have a way to know that. And then courtroom representation, as I mentioned before. Courtroom representation really is the key. It's the ability to go to court, to try a case, and even among lawyers, it's what makes the difference oftentimes between lawyers that are successful and lawyers that are not successful. Lawyers that are not willing to go to court or don't have the ability to go to court and advocate, the insurance companies, the defendants, they start to recognize who those lawyers are. They see the patterns in the way they practice. They see that they settle at the last minute for whatever's offered. And those lawyers tend to not get as good a results by and large.